Evolutionary biology operates on a premise for why higher primates developed such large, complex brains. We are social creatures, and living in hierarchies requires cognitive processing power. This idea eventually crystallized into the Machiavellian intelligence hypothesis. It proposes that the primary selective force driving human intellect was the need to navigate and manipulate complex social environments. The theory takes its name from Niccolò Machiavelli, the 16th century Florentine diplomat. In his political treatise, The Prince, he outlined a strategy of social conduct based on expediency. He explicitly rejected traditional virtues like trust and honor in favor of calculated exploitation. Following the biological hypothesis to its logical endpoint creates a specific prediction. If human intelligence evolved to facilitate manipulation, then the most manipulative humans should be the most cognitively advanced. It is a clean narrative. But when researchers tested this assumption against empirical data from human psychology, the theory fell apart. To understand why, we have to look at the field of personality psychology, specifically the foundational studies conducted by Richard Christie and Florence Geis. In the late 1960s, they developed a series of psychometric assessments known as mock tests. These were designed to measure behavioral variation by asking participants how willing they were to exploit others for personal gain. The test asks for a subject's agreement with statements like, "Never tell anyone the real reason you did something unless it is useful." Based on the results, these tests divide populations into two distinct categories: high mocks, who lean toward manipulation, and low mocks, who default to cooperation. By combining this psychological testing framework with evolutionary theory, we can look at decades of raw data to correct a blank spot in evolutionary biology. Does a high mock score correlate with raw cognitive processing power? This paper synthesizes hundreds of studies to answer that question. Let's look at Table 1, which aggregates 9 major studies comparing Machiavellianism to intelligence metrics. Researchers tracked a set of variables, from standard IQ and verbal ability tests to digit span and grade point averages. Across every study, the correlation between a high mock score and general intelligence is flat. This result is among the most consistently replicated findings in the psychological literature. The data makes the one-dimensional view untenable. High mocks lack a cognitive advantage and simply rely on a different behavioral heuristic. We can observe the limits of that heuristic by looking at Table 2, which tracks practical measures of success, career performance, and job satisfaction. High mocks do not consistently outperform their peers in the workplace. In fact, they frequently suffer from negative correlations when it comes to job satisfaction across a variety of professions. But there is a revealing anomaly in this dataset. Look at the bottom 2 rows, referencing a 1993 study of stockbrokers by Schultz. The results are split. Schultz examined the corporate environments of these brokers. In tightly structured, heavily monitored firms where oversight was high, low mocks earned twice as much in commissions. Conversely, in loosely structured environments like Merrill Lynch, the high mocks earned double. Machiavellianism is context-sensitive. It relies on the environmental catalyst of chaos and a lack of oversight to function as a winning strategy. To understand why structure dictates the success of these individuals, we can map their behavior using evolutionary game theory. This is a standard game theory payoff matrix, representing a social interaction, where players must choose to either cooperate or defect. The high Mac personality maps to the defect strategy. If a high Mac defects while the other person cooperates, they secure a 5-point fitness payoff, optimizing for short-term, first-strike exploitation. The low Mac personality maps to a guarded cooperative strategy known as tit-for-tat. The rules of tit-for-tat are simple. The low Mac cooperates by default, but if they are exploited, they retaliate by mimicking the defector's last action in all future interactions. This explains the stockbroker results. Tightly structured environments allow low Macs to track reputations and deploy tit-for-tat retaliation, mathematically driving the high Mac's long-term payoff to 0. This raises a theoretical question. If defection is risky in structured environments, why don't high Macs just play an Olympian master strategy, perfectly cooperating when they are watched and defecting only when hidden? The answer lies in a concept called bounded rationality. The human brain lacks the processing power to accurately calculate several moves ahead in the complex game of social life. These cognitive limits force individuals to specialize their psychological profiles. Low mocs become emotionally committed to rules to secure alliances, while high mocs detach emotionally to capitalize on strategic gains. Because no human mind is equipped to perfectly balance manipulation and cooperation, society naturally fractures into distinct competing subpopulations. When we zoom out to observe these subpopulations interacting over time, a macro dynamic emerges. Evolutionary biologists call this a conspiracy of doves. Cooperators survive by systematically identifying each other and aggregating into closed networks, forcing defectors to the margins. To counter this segregation, high mocs developed a form of biological mimicry. They use superficial charm to disguise their defection strategy, allowing them to infiltrate these networks. But the short-term effectiveness of this mimicry contrasts with its failure once the social veneer wears off and the defection is revealed. By synthesizing evolutionary theory with psychological data, we dismantle the myth of the genius manipulator. Human social intelligence is not defined by raw deception. It is a fragile, ongoing equilibrium between